For today's Best of 2022 award, we're talking the best RPGs of the year. A genre for all of you who love numbers and abstraction and all that good stuff. This was one of those categories where, at first, it didn't seem like I was really playing any new RPGs, then I got hit by a lot of them. And we have quite a very interesting mix of them to go over today. For the It Could Have Been a Contender award, that is going to go to Pokemon. Whatever is the latest Pokemon on the Switch, another game that I haven't played, I think, a main version of it in years. I've heard it's either the best or worst Pokemon out there, so it may or may not be the best contender, or It Could Have Been a Contender award here. For honorable mentions, we have a double with two very different styles of RPGs. The first one goes to Entity Researchers. This is a Lovecraftian dystopian RPG roguelike that's also part Pokemon. This is a game where you play a researcher in the far future, where Lovecraftian monsters are bleeding into our world, and you and your mechanical suit of some kind are going to be the only thing that can stand in their way. The game has a very interesting and different aesthetic and soundtrack to it. The game itself is built on you collecting or killing different enemies, which their elements will bestow upon you items and rewards, which you can then upgrade your abilities with. The more you use certain skills, they will level up, gaining more power. You collect the data from the different enemies that you kill, which will also unlock additional features and powers and so on. And this is a game that can be quite difficult, especially if you play it on the permadeath difficulty. There are bonus enemies to hunt down, all the missions are procedurally generated. It is one of those games where you can go from dominating everything to one enemy just bam and you're dead. And that is kind of part of the issue with this. It has a lot of very spikiness that goes on. And it's very easy to run into an enemy who's going to destroy you, and you can't even get away from it in time to try and recoup or get out of the mission. Another issue this game had for me is it features the dreaded real-life timer system, where specific enemies and their types will only show up at specific times of the day. So if you're a night owl like yours truly, you're only going to have the chance to see half the enemies, or maybe less than that. And when you're busy during the day doing all this great game wisdom stuff, you don't have the time to pop in and hunt specific Lovecraftian monsters. But if you are a fan of a very different looking and playing RPG, I highly recommend Entity Researchers. For our second honorable mention, this is one that came very late in the year for me, and that is Potato Flowers Are in Full Bloom. Yes, that is the name of this one. And what we have here is a style, or the classic dungeon crawler style of, say, a Wizardry, a Train Odyssey, and that. You will build your party of 3 from different classes. Each class will have their own abilities, their own kind of skills they can upgrade, what gear they're best suited to, all that great stuff. One thing that I really like about this game is the kind of dungeon flow. Because you're limited based on your torchlight and the stamina of your characters, there's this kind of puzzle element, as you have to kind of push into each dungeon section by section to try and kill an enemy or open up a major shortcut, to then recoup, go back, get further, and there's a lot more strategy in terms of movement at play than we normally see from dungeon crawlers. Bosses and kind of the major fights are operating somewhat on a puzzle logic because of that. This is one of those games where you're going to have to be really attentive to strengths and weaknesses if you want to stand a chance. The main issue that I have with this one, the one thing that keeps it from making it to the top 3, is the structure of party dynamics. This is not a game that is built on the dynamic of building a well-oiled machine of a party, maximizing buffs and debuffs, strengths and weaknesses, that kind of thing. It is more focused on who is best for the enemy at hand. And the difference between you taking 3 party members that counter a specific enemy or specific strategy and taking 3 that don't is huge. Because you have such a hard limit on your spells or special abilities, you don't have the luxury of long drawn out battles. You're going to run out of your ability to cast your special skills, and the enemy's going to keep going and even get a desperation phase. So this game is very much about you basically have to build one of every class type, and then you're going to mix and match them back at your home base for the situation at hand. For me, I prefer the Etrian Odyssey. This is my party of 5, and I will keep them for the entire game, and I will never change it no matter what approach. But if you are a fan of dungeon crawlers and you're looking for one that is a little bit different in this respect, definitely recommend Potato Flowers in Full Bloom. Coming in at number 3 for my best of RPGs of 2022, it is Betrayal at Club Low. RPGs are meant to allow you to inhabit a role, hence the R in RPG. So, how many of you have ever wanted to infiltrate a club as a pizza delivery man and may inadvertently become the greatest DJ of all time? This is a game that it's built on kind of tabletop dice-based rules. You have various stats relating to things like cooking, being able to dance and sing, wit, and other unusual traits. You can level up your dice, all of them at the same time in a group, or one face at a time. And this is important because there's not enough money/experience to level up everything. So your runs kind of turn into, what specific stats do I want to evolve or put the highest? And then things will kind of change and shift accordingly. Certain challenges will have different dice advantages or certain stats, and what you decide and which ones you go for can affect the story and what future events can happen. And the game definitely plays with this in some interesting ways. Completing one challenge or doing something with someone may affect the dice and outcomes of another challenge elsewhere. And some challenges only have one shot, and if you miss it, it could lead to a lot of trouble going forward. Aiding you is the fact that dice can be changed or manipulated based on your emotional status. You can become overconfident, sad, annoyed, and so on. And while a lot of these are bad, they can certainly aid you. And you can also kind of farm certain challenges in order to keep getting money to keep raising your stats. As long as you don't run out of health or your mental status, you can just keep going forever and ever. And the game has multiple endings that are ever escalating in terms of weirdness. And as another added bonus, this game has a lot to do with pizza, as you will literally use the power of pizza to aid you. Besides your stat-based dice, you get a pizza dice that you can manipulate and change the faces as you see fit. This will allow you to do everything from gaining health and mind or mental power back, getting bonus money, changing or allowing you to re-roll certain dice, and more. And it's not a good game to play if you're really hungry for pizza. This is one of those games that is definitely unique in its approach, especially with its aesthetic, that kind of goes for whatever art we could find, let's just put it in. And the disconnected art assets kind of make it connected in a very weird way. I can guarantee that you have not played an RPG like Betrayal at Club Low in some time. And if you're looking for an RPG that is original, and you really, really like some pizza, then definitely give it a try. Coming in at number 2, there were a lot of RPGs released from indie devs this year that try to either really play up or kind of be a satirical look at JRPG design, and those that were trying to do things a little bit differently or a lot differently compared to the rest. And Chain Echoes feels like somewhere in the middle. On one side, this is a huge love letter to 16-bit JRPGs. If you've played the likes of Final Fantasy, Chrono Trigger, and all the other major names of the SNES, then you'll see a lot of winks and nods to them here. But with that said, the developers have certainly gone in a very different approach in terms of RPG battles and design. While this may look like your standard 16-bit JRPG, it is anything but. Your party of 8 includes 4 people who can be active, and you can swap between different links at any time. There is an overdrive bar, which lets you basically get into the sweet spot for more damage and better defenses. Multiple side quests. Leveling up is handled by the entire group as opposed to individually. There is a massive open world of side quests, dungeons, bonus stuff to do. And while the game boasts that it's supposed to be like a short JRPG at like 20 to 30 hours, I don't see that given the amount of stuff that you can do in it. This is not the game that's going to change your mind if you hate JRPGs. But it does enough things differently that if you're looking for a somewhat different approach to them, highly recommend you check out Chained Echoes. So if you know me by now, then you know that I always like to reward games that do things very differently. And a game that certainly takes that cake and goes, well, someplace disturbing with it, is Fear and Hunger 2. The sequel to the survival horror JRPG where everything and anything and everyone is out to get you. This is as far away from a casual JRPG experience as one could possibly get, with enemies who can, well, tear your arms off, kill you in 2 or 3 hits, leave you permanently disabled for the rest of your run. A game where you are going to be fighting for every item, every consumable that one can imagine. And in a unusual twist, this one is kind of easier to get into than the first one. Kind of, I guess, in a way. This is a game that in the tutorial you can fail it and get your legs chopped off. So, you can take that what you will in terms of this game catering to casuals. But this is a title that, again, there is no way that this would come from anywhere but an indie developer. And this is super duper on the hard side. If you don't like your RPGs to be hard, if you want to just fast forward through every encounter, this is not the game for you. But if you are looking for a very disturbing, very challenging, and highly original JRPG, then you definitely want to check out Fear and Hunger 2. So, with that said, we are done with RPGs. The list continues, but we are slowly but surely getting to the end. Thank you so much for watching. If you're new, do the liking, subscribing, and commenting. Check out the Discord and Patreon link down below. Let me know what you think of some of your favorite RPGs of the year, and come back for daily discussions on game design here and on Game Wisdom, where you some the art and science of games.